Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Well, no hazardous weather graphic today, so we'll just go right to the breakup map. There is a flood warning out on the Kuskokwim River there for the Kalskag, Lower Kalskag. That's out until 7:45 Monday evening, so just a few more hours of that to go. And that time, hopefully, waters will start receding as the flood warning ends. As far as breakup goes, everything's in a stationary status quo. Dawson could start at any time, break up, as well as McGrath, tripod at McGrath. That could go over at any time, too, from what I was told. So otherwise, everything holding pretty much as it is for the next day or two. And on the satellite imagery, higher pressure coming into the interior here, pretty weak and moving, but did bring a pretty nice day over the central interior on down into south central Alaska. Some high stuff coming through. That's about it, but dry anyway into the Copper River Basin. Sunshine across much of the southeast coastline. Temperatures there to warm up into the high 60s, say around Juneau, 67 degrees at 3 o'clock Monday afternoon. Also some breaks here and some sun breaking out over the eastern Brooks Range and the North Slope areas as this mass of clouds pushes off to the northeast. Otherwise, we've got the big storm out in the Bering Sea with was a narrow area storm force winds with it on both on the backside and in advance of the front earlier today and overnight last night. But strong winds, 40 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts out of the northwest here across mostly now east of Shemya, but specifically from about Kiska Island in toward Adak. And then the front here pushing eastward, south winds gusting size 55 miles an hour, 50 to 60 miles an hour here across the western Alaska Peninsula, Cold Bay, and gusts to about 50 miles an hour at Port Hayden there with rain and snow. Rain, Perblof's front has pushed through there. In fact, the rain's ended during the afternoon Monday, and snow and winds gusting size 40 miles an hour now into St. Lawrence Island area and also back along the southwest coast. Starting out as a widespread area of snow today that extended up to the Seward Peninsula. Some of that mixing with rain in the afternoon on those southeast winds, but rolling this again, you can see that will gradually change over to rain as warmer air finally moves northwestward on those winds later tonight and probably tomorrow as well. And otherwise, you can see the main push here too from south to north with it's very gradually, the entire pattern is gradually shifting eastward with time, and that's going to allow some moisture to finally get up into, well, first Kodiak Island, come across Bristol Bay tonight, and into the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula. Otherwise, on the chart today, front right across the peninsula there, actually very close to Cold Bay, north of the Perblofs, and a lot of showers and areas of rain over the Aleutians with the stronger winds. Again, 40, 60 miles an hour out over the western Aleutians, but rainfall amounts not all that heavy. Cape Newenham at about 3/700ths of an inch since midnight, and along the Alaska Peninsula, Cold Bay, they picked up 1/3 of an inch of rain, as did Unalaska. So some rain, but not terribly heavy, more of a wind producer, this system, than a precipitation producer. But snow again from the Yukon Delta spreading into St. Lawrence Island and eastward, clouds thickening up over the Kuskokwim Valley, and then high pressure at the surface here with high stuff coming through, higher clouds, some clearing mostly along the, well, actually anywhere in the interior here, especially north of the Alaska Range. A couple isolated showers, and that's about it. Generally dry conditions all the way down across the Panhandle today with those temperatures I mentioned rising well into the 60s in some locations. For tonight, look for maybe a little bit of an increase in the clouds there, a little more cloudiness, especially down to the south. Probably will be cloudy by morning there, especially with the IFR that's forecast for the area, and some scattered showers around as well. Dry to the north, mostly clear here, central eastern interior tonight, but clouds on the increase. South central Alaska begin thickening and lowering along the Alaska Range this evening with rain spreading northward on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. Rain, wind, Kodiak Island, rain, wind here across the southwest interior in Bristol Bay, coming eastward there along the Alaska Peninsula, and mixed rain and snow Seward Peninsula westward there, out across St. Lawrence Island. Staying mostly snow there along and north of that, or northwest of that trough axis up into the northwest coast. And windy and showery and very unsettled here for the Aleutians as that low center tracks up toward St. George Island. And then for tomorrow, it doesn't really move a whole lot from its 4 a.m. position to 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. West-southwest of the Pribilof Islands, another trough here picks us showers up, maybe the wind as well, but not like the front. But it'll increase wind and rain again as it pushes across the Fox Islands. Showers Alaska Peninsula, showers and breezy behind the front again, and rain the entire day here for Kodiak Island, but winds diminishing, gradually diminishing as the front weakens and gradient relaxes. Rain on the increase. Kenai Peninsula slipping on up into western Prince William Sound in the afternoon. Dry eastern, northern interior. In fact, the entire northern half or more of the state will remain dry, but most of the clouds will be here to the west and definitely to the south here. But Copper River Basin on up, mostly sunny, partly to mostly sunny for the Copper River Basin, mostly sunny Tanana Valley all the way up to maybe the Arctic coast. Panhandle tomorrow, partly mostly sunny. And then for the next day, a front rolls up and increases the chance of rain there over the central and southern southeast coast there, spreading from north to south, staying dry in the northeastern interior, actually south central Alaska, and much of the interior to the Arctic coast will be dry. Front weakening, but the band of precipitation holds together fairly well. So St. Lawrence Island here in the green shaded areas, look for occasional rain all the way down into southern Cook Inlet once again, southern Kenai Peninsula. Some breaks behind that, showers and less wind out over the Aleutians. And looking at the lows forecast for tonight, lower to mid 40s for the Panhandle there with light winds. Upper 20s, higher valleys of the Copper River Basin to lower to mid 30s south central Alaska tonight, depending on cloud cover and winds, which winds won't be much of a problem at all, be virtually calm. Otherwise, mid-30s there for the Tanana Valley, and then down into the mid-teens for the Brooks Range, North Slope, lower teens, and about the same for the Arctic coast there, lower to mid-teens, maybe down to 9 at Dead Horse, Kaktovik, and Barter Island, with Kobuk Valley and Kotzebue both at about 31. Near the frost point there for Nome, 30 St. Lawrence Island, Gamble, mid to upper 30s though, milder conditions with the windy, wet weather here, windy and cloudy conditions from the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta across the Bristol Bay area. And then for the highs tomorrow afternoon, 55 to 60, 61 or 2, possibly here in the Tanana Valley, and near 60 for the Yukon Flats, into the lower 60s for the Eagle area. And let's see, it looks to be about, well, it should stay in the 50s there for the Copper River Basin. And 60s once again, 60 to 65. Some areas may even try to push 70. But cooler back to the west here, Kodiak in the mid 40s, mid to upper 40s, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, lower 40s for the Aleutians and the Pribilofs, and mid 30s St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, Arctic coast pushing up there into the mid to upper 20s tomorrow afternoon, lower 30s there at Point Lay, and upper 30s here over the northwest. And for the lows the following morning, for Wednesday morning, we've got 45 to 50 degree readings for the southern southeast coast, about like what we've seen for the last several days, and mid 40s up to the north. Otherwise, most areas of the Copper River Basin be at or above freezing, definitely for south central Alaska, even now lower 40s showing up for the lows now. And up in the interior, Tanana Valley, 35 to 40 for the lows, and then cooling into the lower 20s for the Brooks Range, and mid-teens now for the low temperatures for the Arctic coast. Out west, lows in the mid-30s for the Pribilofs and Aleutians, upper 30s Alaska Peninsula. And from there, taking a look at high temperatures, very nice conditions here up in the Tanana Valley area, 40-mile country, even in the Yukon Flats, in the 60s with sunshine, and 55 to 60, maybe lower 60s to sit in the valley, down into the Manduska Valley and northern Kenai Peninsula areas. Another day, 50s to maybe high 60s again, quite a range depending on the marine influence there across the southeast coast. And near 40 out over the Aleutians, Pribilofs with 45 to 50 degree readings for the southwest interior, and more in that 35 to 42 degree range in the northwest.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
IFR here, Kodiak Island, eastward, coming into the Gulf of Alaska, moving northward tomorrow morning, and IFR over the southern southeast coast starting the day out. VFR to the north, central interior, eastward into Canada, good VFR. IFR, North Slope Arctic coast. IFR, St. Lawrence to Nunivak Island, across the northern Bering Sea, otherwise marginal VFR for the Aleutians. Tomorrow afternoon, IFR now well off the coast of the Panhandle, so you're all VFR tomorrow afternoon after the morning low stuff down here in the south, and good VFR over much of interior Alaska. Eastern slopes, western Alaska range, IFR starts creeping northward throughout the day. Marginal VFR in the afternoon getting to about Rainy Pass. Also Prince William Sound, Passage Canal could see some IFR late in the day. East side Kodiak Island definitely, and across the Barren Islands, Kachemak Bay. And then IFR here over the northern Bering Sea, central Bering Sea, but west of the Pribilofs, and just barely reaching Nunivak Island, and then marginal for the Aleutians. Then on Wednesday morning, lots of IFR in the forecast for the North Slope and Arctic coast, staying VFR over much of the interior here, but increasing marginal VFR and IFR as well here over the Talkeetna Mountains. Again, the eastern slopes of both the western Alaska range and the Aleutian range. Kodiak Island, IFR, VFR for the Panhandle, and this area IFR sitting out over the north central Bering Sea with marginal conditions again for the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. And then for Wednesday afternoon, not much change out here, just kind of oscillates around a little bit. St. Lawrence Island right in the thick of it there. And then south side of Nunivak Island, otherwise Pribilofs, Aleutians, marginal, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak, marginal. Marginal VFR here across southwest interior. Good VFR, Arctic coast, southward into the Tanana Valley, Kobuk Valley there, on out to eastern Norton Sound, Kotzebue. VFR, Copper River Basin, the same thing. Good VFR until you get to the southern southeast coast and it gets a little marginal. Passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR maybe. Actually, both those passes will be VFR tomorrow for the Brooks Range there. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, increasing IFR, both eastern approaches tomorrow afternoon. And for Rainy, starting out VFR, then becoming marginal late in the afternoon. And windy, VFR, start to finish. And Isabel looking good tomorrow, VFR flying there. Mentasta, same forecast, VFR for Tanita. And Portage, starting out VFR, becoming IFR. Marginal VFR sometime in the early afternoon, by late afternoon, possibly IFR. And Chilkoot and White, VFR. Looking at the freezing levels here, got about 6,000 to 8,000 feet here over the southeast coast, or 6,000 to 9,000 feet or so. That's where the warmest temperatures are. And then also some warmer air trying to get into the central interior here, but only at about 2,000 to 4,000 feet. And then colder air, well actually 6,000 feet, trying to push up to the North Gulf Coast, but chilly air out over the Bering Sea continues. Icing tomorrow, occasional considerable moderate rime icing here due to terrain enhancement, Kodiak Island, the Aleutian Range, and the Kuskokwim Mountains with light to isolated moderate here out to the west, northward through the Bering Strait and the Seward Peninsula, and then decreasing icing across the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. None for the Panhandle. Jet stream showing strong jet across the Pacific. Of course, one branch taking a turn to the northeast here. That's going to be pulling most of the moisture with this eastward advancing system will be to the southwest interior areas, but enough should work on up into the Kenai Peninsula tomorrow afternoon. The bulk of the moisture down here pushing off to the east. And for 9,000 foot winds, got southeasterlies on the increase, 35 to 50 knots across the southwest interior on out to the coast, 30 to 45 Alaska Peninsula, and a good push of wind coming up toward the Kenai Peninsula out of the southeast across the western Alaska range. About 15 knots, lighter winds here, eastern interior, down across the Panhandle, backside of the system, northwesterlies, 25 to 30. And at 3,000 feet, those are actually stronger, 30 to 40 knots there, turning westerly at 40 across the central Aleutians. Southeast on the increase here, 30 to 40 knots, actually from the southern Alaska range there, across Bristol Bay, on out to Nunivak Island, and then diminishing here as you move north and northeast down to 10 to 15. And pretty light for the Panhandle, although southeast 20 there off the coast of Prince of Wales Island or along the coast. And turbulence, occasional moderate chop here, all the southwest interior to Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, western Aleutians, and smooth otherwise to the north and east. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
It's kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the stratus starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision-making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES-17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES-S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis shows pack ice in the Chukchi Seas drifting southward, but it's melting as it does so, and warmer air that's going to be spreading northward, northwestward into the area over the next several days. That'll just keep it melding during that time period. And for coastal water forecast, east winds 15 knots along the coast, eastern North Gulf Coast, east 10 to 15, north 10, light winds for all the inside waters from the north and northwest, all the way down toward Dixon Entrance and Clarence Strait. Outlook for Wednesday, southeast 20 for Clarence Strait, with seas building to 4 feet, light northerlies for Stevens Passage, and north picking up to about 20 knots with 4-foot seas for Lynn Canal. Southeast 25 knots, small craft advisories here on the south coast, 20-knot winds up farther north, and then the eastern North Gulf Coast, northeast 10 to 15, strongest in the west. For tomorrow, around the Middleton Island area, east at 20 knots, those increase to 30 knots here for the western North Gulf Coast, 45-knot winds out of the east for the Barren Islands, right into Kachemak Bay, and gales for southern Cook Inlet. Out of the north, 35 knots, seas up to 11 feet, northeast 25 for northern Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, northeast of 15. And seas only 2 feet. Now become more northerly on Wednesday in the Sound, east 20 here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, west side east 25, and small craft advisories down from the gales. 2 small craft advisories for the Barren Islands, east 25 for Kachemak Bay, lighter winds in Cook Inlet, north 20 knots with 5 to 6 foot seas. And Kodiak Island, the east side, southeast 30 knots, east 30 for Shelikof Strait, southeast 20, Sitkinak to Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, 25-knot winds out of the south, but we've got gales from the southeast on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, 35 knots, east 30 for Bristol Bay. And for the Wednesday outlook, southeast 20 for Shelikof Strait, southwest 20 on the east side of Kodiak, and light 15-knot winds there southwest of Sitkinak, southerlies at 30 knots from Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, Bering Sea side of the peninsula, southeast at 20, and just 10-knot winds from the southeast for Bristol Bay. And the Aleutians, winds coming down under gale force there for the western Aleutians, 30 knots with 14-foot seas, picking up to gales around Amchitka Island, and westerlies 35, in some cases 40 knots here for the central Aleutians, and over toward Unalaska Island becoming more south-southwest at 30 knots with seas on the Pacific side running as high as 20 to 22 feet. And then for the Wednesday outlook here, northwest 30 knots, stays very breezy out over the western Aleutians, winds diminishing 22, maybe 25 knots here for the central Aleutians, and for Unalaska Island, Fox Islands there, southerlies at 25 with seas 8 to 12 feet. And for the southwest coast, southeast becomes east here, northern Nunivak Island at 30 knots with 10-foot seas, 30-knot winds also for the Pribilofs, east 30 For the St. Matthew Island zone, and for St. Lawrence Island, east 25 with 11-foot seas. Those drop off to 20 knots for the day on Wednesday, with seas subsiding to 7 feet. Southeast 20 along the coast, southeast 25, small craft advisories for both the Pribilofs and St. Matthew Island. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, easterlies 15 to 20, strongest on the east side there, with lighter winds here to the west. Central coast 10 knots, picking up to about 15, especially from Point Lay on down to Cape Thompson to the Strait, east at 20. And that'll hold through Wednesday all the way up to Cape Beaufort. And actually the west side here, probably dropping under 20 knots there north up the coast from Point Lay, east 15 for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coastline. And for tonight, fair, mostly clear, Copper River Basin, maybe some high clouds coming through here, but very nice light winds all the way up to the Arctic coast there, with wind and rain here pushing inland into the southwest interior, back down into Kodiak Island. Wet evening and night coming up there with rain and snow, St. Lawrence Island, and then strong northwest winds, maybe gusting 50 to 60 miles an hour, especially this evening, then gradually diminishing with rain here spreading in Adak and Atka. Showers, Alaska Peninsula behind the front. Variably cloudy with a risk of an isolated shower or two for the Panhandle. And then tomorrow, partly to mostly sunny, highs 58 to 67 again for the southeast coast. High pressure here trying to hold on, but it's really not good enough to keep the moisture at bay here for western Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula. Rain, Kodiak Island, across the southwest interior, gradually lifting northward, but stays nice in the north. Thank you for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.